Greetings, guest. Welcome to the Patriarchy, where we explore cinema classics fueled by predictive Hollywood programming and unpack how our favorite characters in cinema got egg all over their faces. I am your commentator, Dom, and tonight we're unpacking Psycho. The movie Psycho is an American horror film produced and directed by Alfred Hitchcock and was based on the novel Psycho written by Robert Bloch. The film debuted in 1960 and is widely acclaimed as one of Hitchcock's best pieces of work, garnering numerous remakes, sequels, and prequels. This video will take a break from the regularly scheduled programming by shifting the focus to the mind of the male central character, Norman Bates, in the 1960 original picture played by Anthony Perkins. And we will deconstruct some key points in the film to gain a better understanding of Norman and his fascination with his mother and violence against women. Let's first start off with an overview of the plot. The setting takes place in Phoenix, Arizona on a Friday afternoon in December. Marion Kane, played by Janet Leigh, is wrapped up in an entanglement with a man that she wishes to marry. She decides to steal a sizable sum of money from work, which she was supposed to deposit into the bank for her boss, but instead packs up and leaves town with the cash. After being awakened on the road by a suspicious cop, she pulls over at a car dealership to trade in her car. I have to note here that the cop is still following her, so yeah, Marion, draw even more suspicion to yourself by quickly switching cars. So while driving through a torrential downpour, Marion finally pulls over to a motel, where she is stabbed to death in the shower by the owner, Norman Bates. The original film shows him taking out only Marion, but it's later revealed that prior to taking out Marion, he took the lives of two other women before her.
Have you any unsolved missing persons cases on your books?
Yes, 2
Young girls?
Did he confess?
So who is Norman Bates? Upon meeting Marion, we see that Norman is a tall, lanky, polite, mild-mannered, hospitable guy. One of those nice guys portrayed initially as a harmless mama's boy. He offers her food and indulges in conversation with Marion before she heads to her room for the night. But the film takes a dark turn when he stabs Marion to death out of nowhere. And it's not just that he ends her life, but it's how he did it. Under the guise of a woman, his deceased mother. Norman, or Norma's, motive wasn't money or to steal any of Marion's possessions. We know this because Norman takes everything she has, puts it into her car, and pushes the car into the lake. It's obvious that Norman, not Norma, takes pleasure in this because he doesn't look remorseful or tired from cleaning up Mother's mess. He's actually grinning in delight and having a snack as if he's watching a feature film.
You know, I think I must have one of those faces you just can't help believing.
We later find out that the so-called motive is that his mom, Norma, gets so incredibly jealous when Norman has eyes for another woman that she just takes over his mind and rages out against the woman. Now here's the ultimate question, and I'm curious to hear what you all think. Is Norman actually mental in thinking that he is his mother, or is he using this as an excuse to play evil?
You know, I think I must have one of those faces you just can't help believing.
I have my doubts, and I say this because he does break the character of nefarious Norma at one point in the film when he, as himself, clocks the love interest that came looking for Marion. It's also revealed that 10 years prior, Norman poisoned his mom, Norma, and her boyfriend in a jealous rage. So it's not just this jealous mother character he made up who's prone to violence here. He's displayed this pattern of behavior for at least a decade. Let's uncover some facts about Norman. Fact 1. His hobby is taxidermy. Taxidermy is a very specialized art form of preserving an animal's body by stuffing and mounting it. So in a sense, taxidermy allows something that was once living to still exist physically, but only in a lifeless, frozen state. When hotel guests enter the parlor, it's one of the first things they are encountered with, all of these stuffed birds and animals. Also, when Norman decided his mother shouldn't live anymore, he preserved her body so that she still exists in a mummified state without really existing in life. What I get out of this hobby is that Norman needs a sense of control. One cannot control animals or people. We are all living beings and we are all unpredictable. So Norman takes measures to make sure that the things that bring him comfort exist around him, but in a controlled state. Norman was in a very codependent relationship with his mother before her death.
Well, a boy's best friend is his mother.
And although it's not clear how old he is in the film, he's described as a middle-aged man. And if he poisoned his mother 10 years earlier, this codependent relationship with his mom continued into Norman's adulthood. So back to the topic of control. When his mom started dating and had a new man in her life, we can only assume that Norman's sense of control in his relationship with his mom spiraled, sending him into a jealous rage. Sound familiar? Because he was no longer the center of her life. So it makes sense that he enjoys taxidermy, that is, taking living things and transforming them into still pieces which can't hurt him and which he can ultimately control. Fact number 2, his choice of music is Symphony No. 3. Norman has Beethoven on the record player, specifically Symphony No. 3 in E-flat major, or Eroica. Hitchcock made a point to highlight what Norman was listening to. This selection of music is a masterpiece, totally popular and by some considered one of Beethoven's best compositions. This 51-minute composition allows the listener to experience a wide range of emotions, much like watching Norman Bates. This particular symphony consists of 4 movements. The first movement is Allegro con brio, which means lively and bright. The second movement, however, is Marcia Funebre, which is Italian for funeral march and has a much more somber melody than the prior movement. This composition mirrors Norman's juxtaposing moods. We see that Norman can be completely normal, pleasant, even a bit bubbly, and cocky.
You know, I think I must have one of those faces you just can't help believing.
Then suddenly become completely enraged under the guise of a jealous woman. Let's talk about that. Fact 3. Norman poses as a woman, his mother, to do the dirty work, and then plays the sweet, mild-mannered son who dutifully cleans up her mess. A male psychiatrist in the film dismissed the notion that Norman might be a cross-dresser and concludes that he's simply identifying as a woman, specifically his mother.
But in Norman's case, he was simply doing everything possible to keep alive the illusion of his mother being alive.
Now, after watching the film and the adaptation and researching the book, his mother may have been overbearing. She may have been possessive. She was even described as a bit cruel, but was she a killer? Now, I know the prequel spinoff, Bates Motel, would suggest that she is, but even in that series, Norma killed because she had to. It was out of necessity to protect her family. She wasn't ending the lives of random female travelers for no apparent reason. But again, we're focusing on the original story here. Pay attention. My last theory is that his character's overarching MO seems to be to punish women. Within the confines of the original story, he senses that Marion was up to no good and that she was running from something. He even says this, even though Marion does eventually have a change of heart. He also poisons his mother for taking on a lover and no longer allowing him to be the center of her life. We don't have any background on the other 2 women, But if we dive forward into the prequels, even though women weren't his only victims, Norman seems to only be ending the lives of people that he thinks deserves it. This is one of those films that honestly leaves the viewer with more questions than answers. We cannot just accept that Norman has been identifying as a woman, Norma, and Norma gets jealous of other women, so she offs them. The blame shifting on a deceased woman just doesn't sit right with me.
You know, I think I must have one of those faces you just can't help believing.
And yeah, Norma has fault in raising a troubled little but lots of people grow up in up situations, and that doesn't inspire them to go on homicide sprees. So what are your thoughts on Psycho? Is Norman Bates really suffering from a dual personality disorder, or is it an excuse just to get away with the murder of innocent women? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this commentary, like the video and subscribe to the channel for more content. Signing off now, your friend, Dom.